What is the main message that you brought with you to this year's conference, DIGGIT?
The main message was to think about the future of customer relations. And I believe that if you really want to win the heart and business of customers, you need to combine the strengths of digital interfaces with the strengths of humans in a company. And the strength of digital is about making processes more efficient, making them faster, making more personalized, more convenient for people. And the value of humans is to add an emotional layer to that, like empathy and passion are typical skills that humans have and the computers have not. So I'm a big believer of combining the strengths with digital and the strengths with humans to make sure you reach that point where digital becomes human.
How good are we at that? Are there some countries which are doing better than the others? And do you maybe have any experience about Slovenia?
Well, I think if you look at the tech world right now, I mean, you have two superpowers. There's the US and China. They have 19% of the top 20 technology companies are from US and China. So the big platforms are not from Europe. I think that's a challenge that we have in Europe. We missed that. So now we have to build other businesses around those platforms. So I think as European companies, we need to work with those big platforms. And next to that, build our own opportunities. So I think there are more opportunities than ever before to do business. I think in Europe, we're pretty good in the human part, but we lack speed and efficiency in the digital part. So I think we will need to speed up our game there.
Is digital better opportunity for small businesses or for big businesses?
Both. I think for big businesses it's a challenge because they have most of the time older systems that they have to reinvent and they have their legacy systems. But they cannot do anything without, investing a lot in digital because they have this scale of customers that if they don't work in a digital way, they can never achieve the service levels they need. I think for small businesses, maybe they can wait a little bit longer to invest in it. But at the same time, I think the opportunity is really big because a lot of small businesses didn't invest a lot yet in digital, so they can basically start from scratch. And if you see, for instance, the opportunities that Facebook is offering us, it is the cheapest advertising platform you can imagine. Anyone can do it. You don't need any agency. Any small business can tomorrow start with their own branding and their own communication, which was impossible before the age of Facebook and mobile.
Digital appears to be all about opportunities and advantages, but still some people are kind of reluctant to accept it. Why?
I think we always had a struggle for change. I saw this piece of research from the BBC, and they looked at all innovations, big innovations in the history of mankind, and we were always really good in seeing the disadvantages. Like when we invented the written word, when people started to write, a lot of people said, our memory is gone now, because there's no incentive anymore to learn anything by heart because you can write it down. It's when we discovered electricity, we said, all the houses will burn down now and burglars will see when we're home and not home. So we're really good in seeing the disadvantages. Whereas if you then look back 20 or 30 years later, we cannot live without it anymore. So I think the biggest challenge for us, and I know there are disadvantages, but I think as business people, we need to be very strong mentally to look at the advantages, look forward and say, okay, imagine that this becomes something really big. And you think about what will happen 5 or 10 years from now, then you can start to work backwards, remember? You know what I mean?
So if I hear you well, your advice would be stop thinking about what cannot be done and start thinking about how to do what can be done.
Exactly. I fully agree with that.
But do you think that digital will change the geography of workplaces?
Absolutely. I think we've already seen that. The world is more global than ever before. International work has been easier than ever before. You see people are working from home. You see that the way that we interact and co-create together, everything will change in a more open way. If you look in the past, people had their drawers and their desks with their paper forms. Then we had all our own little Excel file with our customers in it. Now we have shared CRM systems. So what you're going to see is that we have this big evolution of working more together in an open, cooperative way. And I think that's something that is just a very positive evolution. Add flexibility in terms of time and place to that, and you have a totally different way of work.
So will our grandchildren eventually laugh at the way we live today?
Oh, I think my children will laugh at the way today. My children are 5 and 7. And the question that I have is, will they still need a driver license? 20 years from now, will they still drive cars? I think they will tell their children, my dad still had the steering wheel in his car, and he still had to push the gas and the brake pedal at a certain moment. So I think there are going to be so many changes that they will definitely laugh at the way that we live today, yeah.
So do you think that the biggest change is still ahead of us?
Absolutely. I think it's chapter 1, page 1 of digital at this moment. It only started 20 years ago. If you look at the evolution of the industrial revolution, I mean, it started 200 years ago and it's still improving. Look at the history of aviation. We started 100 years ago with flying. Look where we are today. So this is like year 1 of artificial intelligence. Imagine what that can be 50 years from now. This is just the beginning.
So is it like an avalanche, always faster and faster?
I think so, yeah. This is the whole story about exponential growth versus linear growth. Our brain is made for linear thinking, so we see the evolution in a step at the speed as it was in the past, versus if you see what technology it's doing, it's an exponential curve, and it's going faster and faster and faster.
Will we have enough strength and capabilities to deal with the ever-increasing pace of the change?
I think so, because it's going to be easier, it's going to be more invisible, and it's going to be cheaper than ever before. In the past, you had a computer that you needed to be a nerd or a programmer to work with a computer, and it was extremely expensive. Today, it's almost for free, and it's very easy. In the future, you don't need a keyboard anymore. In the future, you won't be able to write anymore to talk with a computer. So the interfaces are getting easier and easier. So for us as customers, the changes will be lower than for the industry. So I think as a market, adoption will be faster and faster.
Mid-range mobile phone has more computing power today than the strongest computers about 20 years ago had. So what's next?
What's next? I think the biggest trend is for me artificial intelligence. It started basically last year when Google DeepMind won from Go. That was for me the beginning of the AI first world. But this is also the beginning. But if you look at the ideas that people have there to deal with climate change, to deal with food problems, to deal with energy problems in the world, we just need to improve those processes a billion times, and we can solve a lot of the world problems with that. So I think that that is going to be the next phase that is really going to change society as a whole.
Dank je wel.
Graag gedaan.